Start the recording and welcome everybody to the Friday edition of Richardson Plano Networkers. And this is Lessons from the Zombie Apocalypse, Part 3. And I am going to, at a minimum, talk to each of the podcast warriors who've been on our first 32 episodes of Warrior versus Zombie podcast and have shared their journey, shared their challenges, their zombies, as I call them, as well as where they're going and so on. And what we wanted to do in this session really is have each of these podcast warriors, number one, give us today what it was their main learnings over the last year. It just turns out Warrior versus Zombie, we recorded it throughout the zombie apocalypse, throughout the pandemic, the shutdown. And so we learned a lot through that time. And as we emerge, I wanted to make sure that those listening to the podcast, those enjoying being part of the network and so on, captured some of the high points of that. So we want to talk about from each of the warriors here. Number one, what was the main or significant learnings you had over the last year? Can be what you highlighted in your podcast, or can be something new. Also, any things that you particularly grateful for. I always love sharing gratitude. So the grateful things, the thing that you've had, and then the last thing is, as we emerge, what are the things you're doing today that might be a little differently, or maybe even more intently on moving forward, seizing the day or seizing the days ahead. So with that, I'm going to turn the show over to Brigitte Herfele. Brigitte, if you will open your mic and go ahead and share.
Well, hello, everyone, and happy Friday. Can't believe it's already the end of April. Brigitte Höfele here, super excited to be amongst other warriors. I'm going to say aho to all of you. And, I don't think it's only the warriors within us, it's also the wizard within us. It's the yin and yang, it's the balance of both. But there were some really good talking points, David, and thank you for that. The main learning, when David and I had our podcast and our conversation, we talked about the V8 communication engine. I don't want to go into that. I really want to dig deeper into what's the main learning of the past, year, maybe even, 13 months. And for me, the main learning was, well, first of all, my pain level shifted from standing all day from my feet to sitting all day to my back. That is one of the main awarenesses that I had. So, my massage therapist and chiropractor, they're going, okay, so it's not the feet anymore. Now it's the back, because I'm sitting in front of Zoom all day long, which again gets me into gratitude, because I get to still do what I do and love. What I do best and what I love to do is teach and facilitate literally all day. And that gets me into another great awareness and learning from the past 13 months. And that is, yes, we all experienced somewhat the social distant, right? But it's really not the social distant that we're suffering from. It's the physical distance that we're suffering from. And that left a big impact, not just on us that are here and that are listening to the recording. It left an impact on our elderly. I'm looking at my mom, who was, she's, clearly Brigitte Höfele is not an English name, but yet I have one parent that lives here in the US. I'm originally from Germany, and all my family, my sisters, my in-laws, my nieces, nephews, they're all in Germany, and I haven't seen them in 1.5 years. As a German, I could travel to Germany, but I choose not to at this moment. So it has an impact on our elderlies. It has a huge impact on our parents. I'm a parent myself. I'm pretty sure you're a parent. And I had a conversation with one of my clients yesterday, and he has little kids. He has like a 3 and a 5-year-old, and it has a huge impact on these kids that are now weren't able to go to school, right? So therefore, mom and dad are at home. Well, for a 3 and 5-year-old, hey, mom and dad are home. Well, they still have work to do if they are lucky enough to actually still have work, right? So it's layer upon layer upon layer of going through this, creating this new norm, and facing these challenges, and being, either one of my clients is at home all day working from home and she's by herself. She doesn't have a spouse. She doesn't have kids. She's literally like this flower that is dying a slow death because she's not around other people. So it's that physical distance that I think we're really suffering from. And when we are on Zoom or on Skype, if anyone still uses Skype, well, when I do with my in-laws and they're a little bit older, they know how to use Skype, so I'm not going to teach them the new worlds of Zoom. It's that two-dimensional um, platform that we have. How do we create that deeper sense, that kinesthetic sense, through that two-dimensional platform, right? And that happens through our language. And now I'm going into the V8 engine. It is not just speaking in my own value system when I speak to others, like I'm speaking to a bigger group of people. I must be able to wave and be flexible in my value coded language. We all have coded language. And one of our coded language we're really, really good at, and the other three in the coded language and the value codes we're not so good at, because we have one dominant code that we speak in, right?
Mhm.
So really being able to flex, if you will, into the other value codes as well, to build rapport, to create that deeper feeling of connection, because
Mhm.
that's what people are really yearning for. But all they're getting is this high tech stuff, right?
Right.
And this two-dimensional platform. So, creating, being able to speak to the different values, may it be very structured and very step by step and process driven, or may it be very quick and, in your face and action oriented, or may it be very nurturing and caring and warm and harmonic, or may it be very logic and facts and data driven. It's
Right.
not one or the other. One must be able to wave through all of them and not just speak in their own value coded language. And then on the other hand of the V8 is being able to speak to how one individual, or in a larger group, how people, the array of people, are taking in information. Are they taking in information visually? Are you seeing me? And can you create a picture of what I'm saying? Or are you taking information auditorily? Are you more hearing it? Are you the person that cannot sit down and read a book? You actually have to listen to a book, an audio book. Or are you taking information in kinesthetically? Do you have to create a feeling around what I'm saying? And for you to create a feeling around what I'm saying, if you're that kind of person, I must be able to create that warm and fuzzy feeling with my words, with my tonality, with how I make you feel, of how it resonates with you. Or is on the that's the number 4 here. Are you more of the thinker? Are you taking information in very logically and you're processing it internally? So all of those, the 4 value codes and the 4 representational system, make up the V8 engine. And therefore, I am grateful that I am able to teach others, because I'm going to say, without really knowing the statistics, I'm just going to make them up, because 99% of statistics are made up anyway.
Made up, right?
Right? So I'm just going to make it up. I'm going to say a majority of people are on Zoom right now and are communicating with their teams, with their potential client, with their family members, with their kids, with their parents, yada, yada, yada. We can go on and on and on,
Right.
are on a two-dimensional platform. At least we can see them. So I'm really grateful that I'm able to give them the tools of not just high tech, but there's the balance with the high tech and the high touch, right? It's the warrior and the wizard.
Yeah.
It's that being able to face our fears. So that's what I'm really grateful for. And I'm grateful for you, David, for spreading the good stuff.
Well, I appreciate you, Brigida. You're awesome, and I know that I kind of slotted into your schedule here as is the case with all these warriors and wizards now. I'm gonna figure out how to work that one in too. So maybe it's merging the zombie apocalypse with Game of Thrones or something like that. Okay, so I don't know, but we'll see. But so it's really cool how you are moving forward, and I love the fact that you're continuing to process what we've gone through, like all of the warriors on this that I'm sure, and say, okay, how do I move forward? I'm going to put it in a frame. One of the things that we talked about in episode 1 and then talked a little bit on episode 2 is this VUCA environment, this volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous environment, which is a military term, by the way. It's a military strategy term. And you talked about as a warrior, you just described, you observed what was going on, you oriented it towards what you were already doing. You took what could be very complex and hard to understand, right? And you have made it into your V8. You've made it into a structure, which gives you the ability to deal with the complexity. And then, of course, it's going to continue to be ambiguous. We're going to have to continue that ambiguous environment. Is one where we have to act and then observe and then reorient to what we're doing. So you just gave whether you intended to or not, you just gave a beautiful example of how to navigate through not only the environment that we just came out of, but the environment that we're moving into as we go forward, because the VUCA won't go away. The volatility, the uncertainty, the complexity, the ambiguity is here to stay. So every one of us that's going to talk today or share a little bit, that's exactly what we're doing. So that was a beautiful tee up. I really appreciate you jumping on early. And I'm going to ask the next person who's ready and feeling it to open your mic, and I'll call on you as soon as I see that it comes open. And we'll go from there. And if I don't see any open mics, I'm just going to go, okay, you go. So, okay, Reinhard, in there again. Good job. Go for it, buddy.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much. And thank you for
bringing the other German on the other German in the group. Okay.
Yeah,
I figured.
All my, Birgitta Höferl is about as Schwäbisch as it gets, you know.
Oh my God. Ich bin auch Schwab.
And glad we're not just from Germany, we're from the same area in Germany. So
right. Yeah, I knew that because I've talked to both of you, but yeah, that's cool. I thought that was very cool. Thanks for jumping in there.
Yeah. So I thought I'll piggyback on that right away. I like that you talked about being warriors, because that is something that would be more natural for me to be sort of have the more warrior mentality, being very intense about it and uptight about things. And I like the fact that Brigitte mentioned we have to balance things out here, because we can actually be of a much more powerful state of mind if we're not constantly just uptight and nervous and trying to push and force things. Then we can actually often accomplish a lot more. And that is something that I have really is one of the big lessons that I have learned this last year, that it's not necessarily about how many things you can check off your to-do list that makes you productive, but it's how much have you moved forward as a person? How much have you grown as a person? And so the big lesson for me has been to see in every setback or in every failure, and we may feel somehow that a lot of things that happened over the last year, that we have experienced a lot of setbacks and things didn't go so smoothly for us. But if we can look at those as blessings in disguise, then we can take a very different approach to it, and we can truly actually benefit from those things. One of I look at them as like 4 different types of, am I losing you guys? I thought I was freezing here for a moment. Okay. Like one blessing could be that we learn something from whatever happens from the setback. We could, see that as a learning experience. We could also see a setback or a failure as a correction in our lives, where maybe we were moving in the wrong direction and all of a sudden we need a correction. for example, somebody who hasn't taken care of their health for many years and all of a sudden they get a heart attack or something like that, or a stroke, then it's a correction to where they can make a change in their lives. Or let's say all of a sudden one of their kids or their spouse threatens to leave, and they say, oh, wait a minute, maybe I've not been showing up the way I should be showing up. And we see it as a blessing in disguise. Or it's an opportunity for something better. Sometimes, for example, when I was very devastated as a young man, when this Italian girl broke off with me, and then a couple of years later, I met my wife from Canada, and I was so glad. I was so glad. It was really a setup for something, or an opportunity for something much better, and also a situation where I was able to appreciate my wife even so much more for who she was. She's just a much better fit for me. Not that the other person was bad, but it was just. It was great that my wife is really a really good fit for me. And another one is sometimes we get impatient. For example, when I started my business in real estate investing, things went okay, but things did not move at the pace at which I would have liked things to move. And had they gone at the pace I would have liked them to move initially, what I would not have experienced, I would not have gone through the coaching I've gone through, and I've not become a coach myself. And now I find that coaching is actually so much more enjoyable or enriching for me than the real estate investing, which I'm just doing passively. So learning how to see every sort of setback or failure as a blessing, that's the big thing that I've learned last year. Now, what am I most grateful for? I'm very, very grateful for my family, for what I have, for the opportunities that I have. And also, I'm very grateful that to a large degree, I can still enjoy a lot of liberties here where we live. And we're not too restricted in what we do. It hasn't really affected my daily life that much. Now, just as Brigitte, I was not able to visit family in Germany, so where we had a big family reunion planned last year, and that fell in the water, as we say. So yes, that was not so great, but then it gave me opportunities again to connect with people that I would have otherwise not connected with. And that's the one advantage of this. I don't think people would have been open to even what we're doing here as much as they were before. And Dave, we wouldn't have met if it weren't for this, for sure. And I just, now I have a couple of clients. I have a client in Sweden and I have a client in Australia. This would have never happened before. So there are extra opportunities. And I'm able to connect with people that I would not necessarily meet in my network, but, it goes beyond the network. For example, just when we did our coaching certification, we always do renew and we do continuous training. And when we do role plays, it used to be you were in a big room, you just picked somebody and you did a little bit of role play with them. But now that it's on Zoom and you're thrown into a breakout room, it's completely random. So this time I was in a breakout room with this very attractive young lady from Norway, 24 years old or so. I would have never dared to approach her for role play if it were in a room, but since we were randomly selected, it was still something where I learned, I can coach anybody. It doesn't really matter where they are from, what they look like, or what gender they are, And so that was a blessing there. In the long term, what is different? What have I learned? Or how do I do things differently? I have, as I said in the beginning, I've always tried to push things and get things done and think everything depends on me and I have to make things happen. And I have just started to create a list of things that I can do, that only I can do. And then another list of things that only God can do for me, or that God can do for me as well. So for example, God cannot clean out my garage. He cannot declutter my office. There's a lot of things that I need to do. What God can do is he can put it on the hearts of some people to call on me for coaching. I can spend all day long marketing and sales and all those activities and trying to network and do all these things. If God doesn't put it on the heart of somebody to do coaching with me, I won't have a client.
Right.
So I realize what I can do is I can try to be the best person I can be, focus, showing up in a way that is hopefully pleasing to God, and then the rest will take care of itself. So that's sort of the move forward for me, what I've learned over these months.
That's great, Reinhard, and yeah, it's that's you've even evolved from the last on the 26th when we did this. Is really, I love the clarity there. I love what you've got going. Carl, I'm going to go ahead and go to you because your mic is open, if that's okay.
It is. I didn't know it was open, but I'm always ready. My name is Carl Flowers. I'm here in Dallas, Texas, and I work as a trainer and also as a speaker talking about the founding fathers. And so I couldn't, David, do this without telling you what happened today in Independence history. So welcome to another glorious day in this sweet land of liberty that Reinhard just talked about. Today in history, in 1789, New York City was the inauguration of our first president, George Washington, standing there next to John Adams and members of his future cabinet. And this was the day that we really began with the new Constitution, the new form of government. The Constitution, of course, it started out saying, "We the people," not the government in Washington, but we the people make the decisions. And we've been going now for 240 some years. What a change it has made in the world. In his first inaugural address, George Washington said, "No people can be bound to acknowledge the invisible hand which conducts the affairs of men more than those of the United States." So Reinhard, he acknowledged that there were a lot of things that we couldn't do in the United States without the providence of God. After his inauguration, he walked up Broadway to St. Paul's Chapel. Now, you're seeing here are two pictures of St. Paul's, what it looked like in 1789 and what it looks like today. It's right next door to the World Trade Center site. It's the oldest standing building in New York City. It survived the fire of 1776. It survived the World Trade Center's falling down literally in its yard. And if you go there to St. Paul's Chapel, even today, you can see George Washington's pew, where when the government was in New York City, he prayed every week. So a little moment in history. I'm dedicated to telling the stories of our founding as we approach the 250th anniversary of our country. What have I learned? About a year ago, just about a year ago in April, I attended an online seminar. It was taught by a guy named Scott Halford, who had written a book in 2019 called Activate Your Brain. And I have taught this. I'm fortunate, I'm grateful I was able to teach over 100 seminars over the past year, past 14 months. So maintained a pretty good schedule online teaching. But I've taught this in most of those seminars because this is so impactful in my life. He said, in order for your brain to be activated and thrive in crisis, you need 5 C's. And here are the 5 C's. You need certainty. You need to know that things happen at a certain time consistently and constantly. And what's happened with the pandemic is our schedules went awry. So he says, if you want to focus your brain, you've got to maintain some sort of a schedule. You got to put certainty in your life, put certainty in the lives of the people around you. The second C is choice. Our brain likes it when we get to make our own choices. He even told the story of little children. When they're 1 or 2, they wear whatever you give them. But when they get to about 4 or 5, they want to wear the Spider-Man outfit, not the blue jeans, So smart parents will lay out 3 colors, and you can wear the red t-shirt, the blue t-shirt, the yellow t-shirt. When you give children choices, their brain feels confident. It feels good. It's like a reward. So what Scott Halpert is saying is you've got to give yourself choices throughout, and give people around you choices of things to do. Thirdly, completion. The brain doesn't like an unfinished to-do list. It creates anxiety. Now, what happens when the brain creates anxiety? What the brain is supposed to do is keep you safe. And then secondly, it creates and processes information. But if there's a lot of undone things, or if we don't have certainty or we don't have choice, then anxiety gets in, and therefore the brain can't process our creativity. It can't process that information. So figure out a way every day to complete something. Check some things off the to-do list. Most of you know when I teach time management, I ask this question all the time. How many of you, when you're making a to-do list, write down something that you've already done just so you can cross it off? See, that's your brain wanting to feel completion. So figure out ways every day to remind yourself of things you completed. You'll have less anxiety and you'll survive better in these times. Fourth, we need control. We want to be in charge of something. And what's happened is we weren't in charge of anything. We couldn't go certain places. We couldn't do certain things. So find some place in your life that you can give yourself some control. Maybe it's start a new hobby. Maybe it's a new endeavor of something. But and frankly, we all have extra time because we're not commuting. So you got extra time in your day to create something that you can be in charge of. And that will give your brain some positivity. It'll give it a sense of confidence because it's in control of something. And fifth, context. We need to know why. We need to know what our purpose is. So again, I just heard Reinhardt say, I've started some new things. So now he has a purpose. When we have a purpose, when we know why we're getting up every day and why we're getting online or whatever it is we're doing, then the brain feels like it's moving forward. But when we don't know why, and I mean, again, you can look at the differing communication we've had from authorities on why we're wearing masks and why we're getting a vaccine. And frankly, they didn't know a lot of times, but that uncertainty of the not knowing why holds us back. So figure out the why in your life. What's the why? What is your reason for existence? So 5 C's you can build into your life right now: certainty, choice, completion, control, and context. What am I grateful for? I am grateful for living in this sweet land of liberty, where we do get to make our own choices, where we do have some control over our lives. I'm grateful for health, and I'm grateful for golf, because golf was the one activity I could keep doing all last year, get some sun, get some fresh air, and I believe it kept me healthy. So going forward, where's my focus? I got to focus on my health. I discovered that working from home, I used to travel 10, 15 days a month. I'm on my feet all day in classrooms, walking around teaching. Now I'm sitting on my seat. Instead of being on my feet, I'm on my seat. And I found out that my office is too close to the kitchen. And so I've added 20 some pounds, and I really need to get those off. I need to start walking. I'm learning to market more on media. I'm not trying to build a business as much as I want to market my untold stories of American independence. So I'm starting some new, I've taken a lesson from David, and I'm just about ready to kick off my own little podcast like he's doing with the Warriors, where I'll tell stories of history every day. And I'm linking up with some people in McKinney who are in the Sons of the American Revolution. There's a great McKinney chapter, and I'm going to be interviewing some of them. So I learned a lot from you, David, and I appreciate that. So going forward, we still live in the greatest country in the world. We have mistakes we've made, but we've always corrected them. We've always gotten better. You can just look at our history. We keep improving. And I'll just say what Paul Harvey said for years: no one's trying to leave this country. Everybody's trying to come here, because this is the land of opportunity. And I just want to bring us back to what our founders believed in, so that we keep it a land of liberty for everyone. So I thank you for the time, David.
Well, that's awesome, Carl, and great job. I appreciate it. Thumbs up on all that. And one of the things in his podcast that he said that I've quoted many times, Carl. And Carl, that was awesome. And if somebody wants to learn a little bit more about context and our history, listen to Carl's podcast as we talked about things there. As you said, it's often in all of these cases in our history of our country, whether it's the Spanish flu or all these things, the change actually accelerated trends that were already existing. And for me, that was one of the best takeaways in that entire, not that it wasn't a great podcast anyway, but that was one of the things that I enjoyed the most from your podcast, because it serves me now every day, because I realize I'm looking for all of those trends that have taken a blip up to see what am I missing. And I think that was one of the things that was an aha moment. And I don't even know that you intended it to be as impactful for me as it was, but it really was very, very helpful as I've now looking at emerging, is that on all of those things that we now, if we are observant, if we are not only observing of what's around us, but also being self-observant and so on, is realize what the change or the impact has had on us and what things have maybe done a step function up or started trending up at a faster pace, that we now say, well, okay, is that a mistake? No, it's probably not. It probably was something that was happening anyway. So anyway, I want to keep moving. Okay, so Tom, your mic is open, so I want to make sure I get you in there, brother. Appreciate you joining us. By the way, Tom is a good friend, a client, and his episode is amazing. You want to hear his story. Runs Triad B2B marketing. Great friend, and so Tom, why don't you share the answers to the questions as you see them?
Well, I want to start off by just saying we all need to understand that volatility is here to stay. I think the same old it's gone for quite some time.
Yep.
I'm an older guy, and my early days in business were in the wonderful years of the mid to late 70s when we had stagflation. I suspect we're going to have that again. I don't know any way around it, but that's okay. I mean, it's I've learned many times that the world doesn't have to be doing right for one to do right. And in my initial podcast, I talked about mental toughness, and I think that's even more important because every day we're dealing with things that are buffeting us, and if we can keep our path straight and keep on doing what we're doing, even though we're fighting off things. That's the way to do. And I heard some things that were told earlier, and I just made a point here. I have to go back to this point. I think for the most of us, we've known what to do, but doing it is difficult. And I think maybe one of the great differentiators for people who are successful versus those who maybe aren't quite so successful is discipline. I think most of us know what to do. We just have to make ourselves do it. And I think one of the other things is running a business. We're a little bit focused on short-term goals now. We want to survive. We want to survive to perhaps thrive in the long run. But I think we cannot lose insight on longer-term goals, both business-wise and personally. And I think it's real easy to get focused in tomorrow versus extended versions. Mm-hmm. And we actually shouldn't do that. And I think one of the last things I would say is that there was a lot of talk about gratitude. And I remember writing a friend of mine. I'm from Seguin, Texas, which explains my sophistication. I remember an email I sent to a friend of mine in Seguin that I've known since we were probably in the 7th grade. And I said, my unabated ambition has kept me from ever being satisfied. But it's also kept me from having gratitude, because when you keep looking forward and forward and forward, you forget to say thank you for what you've gotten. And I think Reinhardt mentioned gratitude, and I think that's a really important point. And I think also engaging in gratitude also reminds you of what you have accomplished, and I think it keeps you a little bit more grounded. I will offer a book for people to read if you ever get a chance. There was a neuropsychologist by the name of Oliver Sachs. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but the movie Awakenings was taken from one of his books. Really brilliant man. And Oliver Sacks was a gay guy who was born to a Orthodox Jewish family in England. So you can imagine some of the things he dealt with going forward. But as he was dying, he put together a series of essays about gratitude, and it's really it really is uplifting to read that. So you know, why we all want to keep pushing forward. We want to make progress. I want to grow this company. I want this company to do better. I want to provide better services and make more money. We also have to realize that we have done some things and have some gratitude towards it. And also understand in your gratitude that you're not the only person that did it. And my background, I was a football jock, and which explains broken noses and everything else. And one of the things you learn about playing football, it's a 22-person team. And I don't care how talented one person is, the team is what makes it happen. And more so than probably any other organized sport. Maybe soccer is that way. I don't know much about soccer. And running a company or running an organization is the same way. It's team. And it's not, one superstar is not going to cut it. Whether it's superstar as an owner or employee or whatever, it's the team effort. And if you can work in a team-like fashion, whether it's with people on your own organization or with customers and suppliers, it's really important. So I think we're all in for some tough times. I don't want to be the gloom and doom guy here, but I really do believe we're in for some tough times. I could go into a lot of economic reasons why, but I won't. So I think we've got to remain strong. We've got to be very focused on where we're going, and knowing even if our direction takes a little bit of a detour, that we'll be on that direction. So that's kind of where I am now. And I want to say thank you to Reinhardt and several other people. Really good presentations. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Tom, and I think your learnings and importance going forward. I've seen that in the things, in terms of the mental toughness, the challenges. That's an important thing. One of the reasons why I'm so impressed with all the podcast episodes with everybody that's been on is the power and the mental and physical and emotional toughness and persistence to move forward that each of you as warriors has undergone, which to me is the key attribute of warriors, is that we have an intention, we have a vision, we're moving forward. And yeah, there's going to be tough times. There's been tough times. There's always going to be tough times, but we know that. So we're not going forward, as warriors coming out of this, emerging, assuming, it's going to be, all rainbows and unicorns. That's not life, right? Life knocks you down. Nothing hits you as hard as life, right? If you know the Rocky quote, right? That whole segment, but you keep moving forward. You get knocked down, you keep moving forward. So I appreciate you, Tom. I know you've, as an agency with employees and trying to keep people employed through this last year, and all the things that you've done to be 26 years in business has been an inspiration to me. So I want to just acknowledge that as we keep going. So the next person who wants to open their mic, if you want to do that, if you're ready to jump in, that would be awesome. So Scott, I was going to call on you if you didn't open your mic, so go ahead.
Well, I appreciate that, David, and thanks. Sorry I was a little late, and I've got to run a little early, but I wanted to make sure that I honored your request and wanted to share with everybody, and greatly appreciate everybody being here. I think the lessons learned for the year have actually been pretty phenomenal. The lessons are that you can actually turn on a dime and use the most overused word in 2020. You can pivot, and amazing things can happen from that pivot. And it kind of all comes down to how you're looking at it. I actually did my first live talk in front of an audience a week ago Tuesday, and it was 13 and a half months since the last live thing like that. And I even said to him, as a professional speaker, one of two things has to happen for 13 and a half months between events. The last one you did had to pay you really well, or you better be hustling out there. And it wasn't the last one paid all that well. So the point is that it really comes down to the lessons learned for the year were a lot of knocking the dust off some of the things that had worked for years and years and years, but quite frankly, stopped using. And then realized that going back to them, there was all sorts of opportunity there. And it really comes down to perseverance and persistence. And it's not about getting knocked down. We're all going to get knocked down. We all get knocked down every day. It's not about getting knocked down. It's about getting up. And what do you do once you get up? And what do you do with the information that has forwarded itself through all that? We had planned and launched a worldwide global community prior to the pandemic, only to have the pandemic hit and realize that we were actually answering a lot of the questions and a lot of the things that people needed out ahead of the pandemic. And in the pandemic, they came even more critical going forward. And so you start to realize that just because there's this massive upheaval going on, Einstein said it many years ago, in the midst of every crisis lies great opportunity. The question is, are you looking for the opportunity, and what are you going to do with that opportunity once it shows itself? We've been very blessed to be able to create a worldwide global community that's taking on a life of its own in 47 countries now. I'm talking to people. I was talking to Monaco yesterday, and a great friend in Monaco, and her business is exploding because now she has changed the structure and gone online with Zoom. It's absolutely amazing that, you know, being forced to shelter in place kept us from so many personal face-to-face meetings. And at the same time, technology has now allowed us to go and expand into places that we never thought of being before. So it's just all how you take a look at things. And I think those were some of the greatest lessons learned last year. Tremendously grateful just to be here. I don't think I'm the only one who has been punched in the face a couple times throughout the year and said, "Thank you, sir, may I have another?" You know, I mean, oh my God, right? Not everything has worked out the way it's been planned, but what I've found out from that, and I'm grateful to a variety of organizations who have been very gracious in working with you, working with me, to allow you to move forward, even though it wasn't the plan that was set in place prior. People are being accommodating, they're modifying their business terms, they're doing all sorts of different things. And so tremendously grateful that, quite frankly, we're still here and we have the opportunity to add to more people. One of the things, as Tom was speaking, that popped into my mind intuitively, and I wrote about this in one of my books, is I call it positive discontent. And it came out of a situation where one time in a mastermind, somebody said as one of their rules of life was never be satisfied. And I said, what a shame to never be satisfied. You've put all this effort in, you've done all this work, you've done everything. You're the one who made this success happen. And yet to have a rule of life as never be satisfied seems really incongruent to me. And so I coined the term positive discontent. Now, what do I mean by that? Positive discontent is, you know, absolutely being tremendously grateful for everything that's happened in my life and wanting to do more and better things going forward. So it's looking at all those things that have been accomplished, be grateful for them, and yet be positive behind that, and yet still have that little touch of discontent that says, have I totally utilized the talents and capabilities God has granted me to their fullest? And I don't care who you are and who your God is. I think we can all say that we all have more to give and we can all do more things from that side. And to get on to the third question of what are we doing differently? Obviously, we've gone online. That saves so much travel time. I laughed about it. I did in that live event I did. It was titled "Gaining Certainty in an Uncertain World." So, Carl, your certainty, your C's were awesome there. Um, but one of the things I said, what would I have done differently? Well, I got a new car last year and a new lease. I wouldn't have gotten the 12,000 mile limit a month or a year. I wouldn't have gotten the 10,000. I would have gotten about 6 miles a month, and I would have been just fine, because that's about all I'm using it to go to the grocery store and back, because we're not having the personal meetings. I think with everything that's happened, we have such a great opportunity to come together in meetings like this, and Dave, with your leadership and everything that you've been able to do with these podcasts, I congratulate you, because you've pulled so many more people together than you probably thought you could going into it. And yet it's been so much better, so much more valuable. And we're all able to do that little bit extra that we didn't even know we had in us. So thank you for the opportunity. Bless everybody for being here. Keep on doing the great things you're doing, because you're all awesome. And I'm getting to be the benefactor of much of that, and really appreciate you all. Look forward to sharing again one of these days in person. See you then.
Awesome job. Sorry, I actually, Zoom had kicked me out here, so I had to, so I didn't lose it. But the good news is the recording keeps going, so nothing got impacted there. But yeah, that was awesome, Scott. I really appreciate you sharing. I know you don't have a ton of time. By the way, if you ought to listen to Scott's podcast. Scott, we're gonna drill down and have another conversation on the podcast in season 2, where we talk about some of the things we're doing about building community globally, and some other things using, obviously, Be Connected, our efforts in our face-to-face networking, and how that's all going to work in the future. So I want to have put that out there for you to think about. But anyway, as with all of the warriors that have talked so far, I really appreciate and respect your heart of service. I love my community. I love my community of people. Everybody I can see on this podcast has had an impact on my life in the last year. So I'm very grateful for each and every one of you, and everybody else that's not on this podcast that has chosen to share their most valuable asset with me. So I'm going to keep moving here and go back to the list. If you would like, Warrior, if you're ready, to go ahead and open your mic. Anybody, any of the podcast warriors that haven't spoken, if I don't see a mic open up, I'm going to call on somebody. There we go. Mark Weber. He knew I'm not afraid to voluntold anybody. So you're up, buddy.
Okay, I was just making notes. I hadn't written my notes yet. So, yeah, this has been a fun year, hasn't it? Mm-hmm. The good news is we had high-speed internet available. We weren't living prior to that era. We were able to order what we needed to survive online and have it brought to our doorstep, and not have to worry about going out in a lot of cases. Mm-hmm. So in that respect, I think we were very fortunate that it happened when it happened. And we also had some preparation beforehand, that they came up with a new technology to come up with a new vaccine to treat what came up. So we didn't have to wait 5 years like they did with polio. So there's a lot of things to be grateful for when you start looking at our place in history and what was going on. I think the most important lesson that we all learned was we kind of had a chance to pause. I know a lot of people's schedules were just bam, 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 meeting after meeting, and we were running as fast as we could. And a lot of us had a chance to step back and take a look at our schedule and evaluate what was going on. We could see where we were, what could we do, what does our workplace look like now that we're all online, and focus on what we could do better. It gave me an opportunity to read more, go back and study, not having to waste as much time in getting places. We could simply pop into a Zoom meeting or pop into a remote session with somebody and continue to function pretty much just in a virtual way. So that was a nice change. I think it gave us a lot of our time back. And I'm kind of like Carl in the fact that, the kitchen's too close. But fortunately, the summer's coming and the yard care and having to walk the dog and such. We had a dog that's probably helped out a lot too. So it gave me a chance to look at where could I quit duplicating costs and focus on collaboration, partnerships, and additional services. And during this time, I joined forces with another technician, Jarrell Sterling, and he was kind of my backup at the beginning. We had a one-on-one at the beginning before COVID occurred, and I had more restrictions on me going out than he did, and he was willing to go out with the mask and do what on-site stuff needed to be done. So towards the end of the year, I said, we ought to just merge these two companies because I'm 64 and I need to have an exit strategy and I don't want to go out as often. So he's filled that role, and he had some services I didn't have, and he had a different management service that was not SolarWinds. So when that came along, I was able to quickly convert my customers. And so there's been kind of a nice complement of services, backing each other up, not having to duplicate accounting and bookkeeping and things like that. So that has been nice. So I'm grateful for that partnership and the savings and costs, having a backup and a successor, because I didn't want to leave my customers in the lurch if I decide to retire tomorrow. They're taken care of. So we had an era. Grateful that we live in an era that we were able to work, that we were able to order what we needed, and we survived. Yeah. We're kind of seeing the end of the tunnel. There's a lot of people going on vacation. Can't get a rental car in a lot of places. Gas is getting scarce for the summer because everybody's wanting to travel. And well, it's due to the fact that a lot of the truck drivers had to change industries. The other thing I really am grateful for is the walls and distances seem to have gone away. We don't have to limit ourselves to thinking, oh, I'm only in Dallas. I'm only in my geographic area. We can be global if we want to be. Right. So that's been a nice thing to come about that we didn't really think about before. We've kind of had the capability, but we didn't have to think about it. So differently, I'm thinking about, I can fix a computer, I can fix a network, but the focus is going to become, helping the person sitting in the chair, because that's where I need to focus, because if you click on the wrong thing, bad things happen. So I need to focus on teaching people not to click on the wrong thing or the wrong link. Kind of educating people as we go along as to what can happen or how to get out of it or what we need to do in preparation. Yeah. So there's only so much I can sell, but I need your help on the common sense part, Right. So I'm focusing more on remote services and on the monitoring, trying to say, right. I don't have to be there 24/7, but my software can, and it'll make sure you're up to date, and we can make sure backups get done, and we're doing our due diligence remotely via software. Right. And
and that's awesome, and that's a great place to jump off and then say we're going. For everybody here, even if you're not in the technical world like Mark is talking about. You gave us a good example there of looking at what things are going. And when he talks about providing managed services or that kind of stuff, it's really, can we do something for people ongoing to sustain a community in a particular way in order that they can do another thing which he talked about, which is avoid the problems. I mean, what he's saying is, you break it, I can fix it, but you're breaking it, and I need to teach you how not to break it. And I think that isn't just in the technology world. I think that's in our life. I think that's one of the things that a lesson, if you will, a warrior nugget here that we can take away is that those things aren't going to change, but we need to realize that we can help people avoid, stepping in the hole and breaking their leg, but by showing them where the holes are. So if no matter what lane we are in, and I do believe in, I think there's riches and niches. So we need to begin to think about the lane that we're in, right? And where we can serve is we're going to be further down the road than the people that we're leading or we're inspiring or following. And so when the holes appear, we need to come up with things in our business models and stuff to encourage them not to fall in those holes. You don't need if your client is around everything breaking and you're not taking your client as a colleague to the next level, then I think you're not doing as much as you can. So that's awesome, Mark. I appreciate that. Who else of the warriors? Anybody need to be voluntold? Or I'm just looking here. Looks like we got Randy, Ricky, Karen. Which one of y'all want to open up? Karen, good job, Karen. Go for it. Needed a female voice in here now since we haven't heard one since Brigida.
I figured you'd see me on mute at some point. So just a lot. This past year has been interesting, and I know I'm surrounded by a whole bunch of testosterone faces, so I'm gonna throw in a little bit of estrogen for those people who aren't necessarily in man mode all the time. This past year has given me a chance to actually be a girl. And I know a lot of people, we don't need to get into the politics of feminism or anything else, but a lot of people, at least on a basic level, understand that we're wired differently, and having to work and produce and constantly be forcing things to happen and making things happen. That's a very man mode, for which you guys are very well wired. And I thank God that men are, because somebody needs to be. But I haven't had a chance to experience that at all in my life up until the pandemic hit, where I could just calm down and not have to produce and force and make everything happen. And I've gotten to kind of be, and I've gotten to see what it's like to be. So for those of you who have not had a chance, whether you're a man and you're trying to do something that you're not happy doing, or you're a woman who's constantly in man mode and burned out, I've gotten to evaluate, is this the journey that I really want to be on? Is it's providing for my survival. So I've got survival handled, and I'm always burned out, and I'm always exhausted, and I never have space for myself, let alone for anybody else. And seeing the energy level that I can get when I can just be who I am. Now, I'm not, if you're a woman and you're a producer, awesome. I'm not saying don't, and in which case don't go all happy and fluffy, because that'll probably stress you out. And if you're a man and you're the happy, fluffy and not the producer, same thing. This is not a judgment. I'm just saying, if you are not getting to be yourself, try to explore what that looks like, and the power that comes from it. Because I've slowed down and I've actually stopped trying to produce and stopping all of the activity that I was doing. I've been more productive than a lot of people around me who are spinning their wheels, just by being me. So if I don't care if you're a man or a woman or you're masculine or feminine, it doesn't matter. But if you feel like you're spinning your wheels, try stopping whatever it is that you're doing and just relax, sit back, do nothing. Just do nothing and wait and see what happens. And you may get really surprised by what's happened. So I think since I shared something completely different last time, I'm going back to Tom and the gratitude. And interestingly, I'm actually starting a 100-day gratitude challenge tomorrow in a Facebook group. So it's people need gratitude right now, and they need apparently they need to be led in understanding and following and being grateful. So I'm putting that out with the help of some other people. But that's the biggest lesson is I can actually be me, and that ends up being much more powerful and producing better results than when I'm trying to produce, which made me so happy. And for what am I grateful for? The fact that I have gotten to experience that over the past year, and the fact that since I've gotten to a place where I can be there, even if it doesn't last forever, I even if I have to switch over, the possibilities that are showing up in my life as far as even money making opportunities that are large. I'm not talking about having to work hard for 10 cents. Just this is a possibility that where I won't have to put in much effort, but will net huge ROIs. They're coming to me. I'm not having to hunt them down. And I think it's all because the universe and I finally connected. We just did. God, universe, I don't care what you want to call it, it's irrelevant. But we finally just kind of sat down, chilled, and grabbed a cup of coffee. And that was good. I think those are the biggest things for me right now.
Awesome. Yeah, excellent, excellent. And so, yeah, you just described both an external and an internal, what's called an OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, and act. Right. And what you did was you looked at what was going on, and then it's overwhelming at first, and then you realize the opportunity there. And now I mean, yeah, you're actually different from the last to 26th
Yeah.
in terms of not just what you talked about, but I can tell in your energy and stuff. And I think it is a good opportunity sometimes to stop, especially if you observe that it's not working, and then reorient it back to yourself, which is your authentic self. We're all unique, right? So if in this environment that we're in, we're always kind of pulled as warriors to conform or comply, or the whole herd of zombies is going in one direction or another, and you have to break out, and that breakout gives you the space to do some things. And oh, great, guess what? People that recognize your authentic self that maybe got lost in the busy world that you were in, right? Those people now see you, and the opportunity presents itself. So that's a beautiful thing. Thank you, Karen. That was really awesome, and I love it. I love it. So, Randy, you want to go next?
Yeah, I figured sooner or later I'd have to open my mouth, so I'd rather volunteer than be voluntold. So, Karen, great job. I was I was a little concerned about her earlier in the broadcast today, but she's doing great, and I'm glad to hear things are looking good. And which brings me back to one of the things that Tom P said. He was talking about change, and because there's that old adage that the only constant is change. But the point that I think he made, and we're all becoming aware of, is that what has changed is the rate of change. And so things are changing quicker than we would, and they're changing in different directions than perhaps we thought. So I went back and looked at what you had posted for the zombie interviews, and I looked at the list of 4 things that you had. 2 of them still are right up there. One is trusting God, or your higher power, and that has never wavered. I would say through my entire life. but even right now, it's even stronger than it's ever been. And the other one is smile. Life is good, regardless of what's
Amen.
going on. You know, when we do the regular calls and I help facilitate early on, I'm always the guy that's smiling, other than Grover, who's the other smiler. But you know, we all have issues, but life is still good, and with people like we've heard today, and ourselves and God, there are ways for us to find solutions and to leverage the change that we talked about. Uh, I have gratitude for a lot of things, but being an independent person and retired who still is struggling with retirement in the sense that, you know, for a lot of people, retirement means, you know, go play golf, you know, go to bingo. I tried the bingo thing, and then COVID hit. But 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 I'm gracious, gratitude, thankful for the technology,
Yeah.
for the technology that just hit. I mean, it was always there, but somebody figured out that, you know, we can use Zoom. I mean, I started out with the, you know, the one that was doing with my kids, just talking to them on the phone. But Zoom just hit at the right time, not only for us, for the groups, for individual businesses to talk to clients. Mark and his people are doing more of that. And and we use it with our families. We have, you know, I'm sure that Reinhardt Zooms a lot with his family overseas, and you can watch them grow, you know, while you're still talking to them. It's not the same as holding your grandchildren in your lap, but it beats the alternative of not. And the downside for me has been, you know, missing my two of my three children. My only daughter and my youngest son are still in Massachusetts, and we do talk to them frequently. And our only two grandchildren are in Massachusetts, and we do Zoom with them. So I got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and try to maintain the attention of a 2 and a 4-year-old on Zoom. They both want to hold my daughter uses a phone. They both want to hold the phone and talk to grandma, talk to grandpa. But at least we see them, and my daughter posts a great deal of things. So I think, you know, I think that's kind of it. You know, I've learned with the retirement thing and still trying to offer my services to people. I've decided that what I need to do, in addition to just, you know, giving my 30 seconds at the meetings, is I need to reach out to people. What a novel concept, you know. I just thought that you just tell people what you do and the world will beat a path to your door. We teach people in networking it doesn't work that way. Duh. How come the great consultant I am hadn't figured that out? So I'm doing that now, reaching out to people and asking questions and listening more and seeing if there are ways that I can help them. And the benefit to them, other than my experience and my wisdom, is that it doesn't cost anything. I truly am a retiree who is volunteering my intuitive powers, my knowledge, and my analytical skills to help people grow their businesses and have a better life. So I think it's been an interesting time, and I'm enjoying it. And Dave, you've done a great job, and I think today's session is more evidence of that. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks, Randy. I appreciate that. So yeah, so you said a few things there, and one of them is that we never should abandon our life purpose, whatever that is, and it doesn't matter what you define or what you label that particular part of your journey, whether it's retirement or you call it something else. The reality of it is sustaining our life means sustaining our life purpose. And if we lose that, I don't think we're necessarily long for the planet. So that's a great learning, and I see you actually pivoting and growing, and I commend you for your servant's heart and your commitment, being connected to God, understanding that is, I mean, through this point, being connected to God and being connected to your family and being connected to the people that you can serve. We had to learn how to do that in a different way,
Right.
And the reality of it is that way is not gonna go, it's not that we're not gonna need that. I think that going forward, as you point out, it's gonna be part of the fabric of what we are going forward. So
And
anyway, thank you, Randy.
I just wanted to add to that. Your point was, if we give up or lose our life purpose, then we're giving up.
Right.
And if we give up, then why are we here?
Right. Yeah, I don't think we're wired not to be part of a team, and so I think that's all part of how we were created, and I think we need to honor that and make space for that, and you guys have all hit on that in various ways. Well, my new golf buddy Ricky Jean Wright, after 2017, which was the last time I actually played a full 18 holes of golf, I actually got to get back out on the golf course and hobble around with Ricky Jean Wright, and so this
Did
week.
you keep score?
Yeah, kinda. I kept score knowing that I was, if I stayed below 100, I would be doing good. So anyway, Ricky Jean, you want to share with us, brother?
Well, I guess really I kind of have a complete different take on this. Looking back at the pandemic of 2020, and my take is that I am very thankful that life had already taught me to be thankful, and life had already taught me to look at the glass half full instead of half empty before this ever happened, because I had listened to some really kind of depressing stories from people who 2020 was just rocking them, and it was not doing that to me, and I was able to be a positive influence on my family and the people around me. And I'm very thankful that I had already learned that great lesson in life, that just getting knocked down is just part of it. You're just gonna, get back up and keep going. As far as my family, the positive influence that I'm thankful for is that I had 2 grandchildren born during the pandemic, and I was able to go to the day that they were born and go and hold them. And one was in Austin, one was in Little Elm, Frisco area, which made me be thankful for 7 grandchildren. And all the birthdays and all of the Thanksgiving holidays and the Christmas holidays, we all spent together, whether we traveled there or they traveled here. My whole family took the nod from us, from me, that we weren't going to treat 2020 any different than any other time. So I'm really thankful that I don't think it was just a natural thing that I have always seen the glass half full instead of half empty. But this last year made me realize that that's really the way you have to be. You can't see it in a negative vein, because negative things come along and will just make it impossible to operate. So I didn't want to do that. And people kind of looked at me weird that I kept going out to restaurants and eat, and I kept doing things in a kind of a normal manner. But I just made the decision that I was going to not believe all of the things that I hear and all the things I see on the news, and I was just going to be positive. And I guess that has happened my whole life, because I always wanted to be a songwriter involved in music, and I have been, and there's always been obstacles along the way. And one of the obstacles that I thought I had overcome was I was sort of the last person standing in a group of worship leaders, and wound up being a worship leader at a church for about 10 years. And I thought that at the time that, well, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to do in music. And as I got got older, in that from the 40s to the 50s, I realized that it was a young person's world, and that they really wanted young people on the stage to, to give the appearance that church is growing, and they don't want these old guys really being the leaders. And so that was that was one of those things that, am I going to look at this as being, I thought this is what I was going to do forever, or am I going to find another outlet of music? Well, guess what? I decided that, well, how about another outlet of music, like a Americana singer-songwriter?
Yep.
So I think that what I'm really blessed and thankful for of this past year is realizing that I have the ability to always see the glass half full and just go with it.
That's awesome. Appreciate you, Ricky. That was really good. So we've gone through the podcast warriors here on the that are here on the Zoom today, and some of them, again, the scheduling we'll probably do part 4. Who knows? But if you like this format, I'm going to be, we'll talk about at the end. I found a place to have these kind of discussions in an audio sense, if you have that, and we can chat about that. And it's kind of the same kind of format. We just brought the podcast warriors to the stage, and then there's people in the mix here. So anybody that's not that wasn't a podcast warrior, or that wasn't speaking, you can feel free to open your video and come online and just. I'm gonna Chica. Would you like to share? Would you like to just say hi? I get a female voice in here. We've had a bunch of guys talking, few women, but I know Chica, if you can, I see her scrambling right now, so she was hoping that she could just sit there and listen. But Chica's doing a lot of things in her business, and made a lot of pivots in the last year, and doing some stuff, and she's a leader in her own right. So you don't have to. I'm not looking for even 5 minutes or whatever, but just introduce yourself to the group and just say what you're doing going forward here.
First of all, I'm very sorry I was late, and thank you so much, David. And I'm so glad to join this group today, because Friday is pretty busy for me and my kids, but I thought, I can't, excuse for that. So I joined it, and I'm so glad to be part of the group right now. My name is Chica Griffin. Some of the people, they don't know me. I originally came from Japan, and I've been in the United States for over 20 years. I'm a energy provider, electricity and gas, and it's selling to the commercial. It was very great. Mr. Carl was saying about, why? Because I started my business 12 years ago. And actually last year in April, after the April, I lost my business. And I was building for almost 12 years. And I'm still hurting that feeling because I was very wanted to change my family life, family legacy, because I grew up very poor family. My mom, she's a working, businesswoman, but we have 4 kids, and my father was brain cancer. So I lost my father when I was young age. So we are very struggling about money, because my mom is working 2 jobs and, helping kids, and, my father's hospital bills. And so I grew up and I wanted to change my life. So when I started my business and why I'm doing this. So Mr. Carl was saying about why. And I was building the business with team, not only by myself. Mm-hmm. So I forgot about it. I lost everything. And, like last year, because the pandemic and all this reason, I lost it. But then now I realized why I was building the business, why I was get to the point was I was successful making money, because I have a strong why, and I was not by myself. I was actually working with other people to try to make them money. So I really glad I'm here today, and I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. Thank you, David. You have such wonderful, group, and I really enjoy it. And thank you.
Thank you, Chica, and what you said there was extremely powerful, and I know that that's one of the reasons why I knew if I brought you on, you would share something that would inspire me, and the fact that you said two key things, which is basically continue to know and understand your why, and then also that life is a team sport, and learning more and more how important it is to, no matter what the physical or limitations that we have at any given point in time, is continuing to surround ourselves with a team and being able to find not only people to serve but also people that can help you serve. And I think you've exemplified that, and all the warriors here as well. By the way, just so I don't forget, we're kind of coming down to the wire here. I'll keep the chat open and keep the Zoom open at the end, but I'm going to do a couple of announcements. Carl also posted that Activate Your Brain document, and it's live. It should be live to download. If you can't make that happen in the chat, then I'll save it in PDF form and put it on the closed Facebook group for when we have the recording out there.